What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Small Lake City Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Nilsson, and here we are on episode number 23, the Jordan episode. Excited to announce our guest. You probably follow her on Instagram, and if you don't, you've probably seen her content come across your feed. Her name is Amber, but she goes by the Mile High Food Fairy on Instagram. She's someone who knows the food landscape in the Salt Lake Valley and Salt Lake area super well and has a lot of opinions. But one thing I love is we talk about some of her favorite places that she likes to regular and likes to frequent. So if you're looking for a new place to try, we have a great list for you to dive into. Amber is such a great person and such a great personality. It was fun to get to know her, and I'm excited for you all to listen in and hear some great places to go out for your next date night, friends, night out, whatever it may be. We've got a place for you. So let's hear from Amber. I mean, granted, like sushi in Utah is, I mean, it's funny because like if you ever talk to anybody about food and sushi in Utah, it's like, oh yeah, Takashi. Like everybody mentions Takashi, but Sapa to me is always a close second and probably like Tsunami a third after that.
Sapa's actually my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
I do like Sapa's like diversity more because like one of my favorite foods of all time is like teriyaki chicken. Yeah. And so sometimes I'll be like, I've had sushi a lot, especially with like my past partner. She loves sushi, so we'd always go. And somebody would be like, hey, listen, like time out. Like I need a little bit of a break here. Yeah. But all in all, like they're great.
I'm trying Yukiyama in Park City this weekend, so I'm excited for that.
Have you never been?
I've never been to Yukiyama.
Oh, that's like
one of the main ones that I need to go to still.
I know that's one of my like favorite like special occasion places because like Park City is always frustrating because it's not that it's like 25 minutes away, like that's fine. But then it's like, you're there. And like, so I can't really like get drinks. So I can't really go out because I have to come back and I don't want to stay there. I don't want to Uber there and back. But Yukiyama is one, every time I've gone, it's been a great experience because it's cool because it's like in the basement, it's pretty intimate, like just a very like unique space. And so it's a fun place to be. I'm excited for you. I'm jealous for you, honestly. Well, Amber, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast because you're someone who's been mentioned by guests twice as someone that they want to have on. One of which being one of my good friends and mutual friends. I mean, Ying Nance with, I almost said donut critic. No, Chubby Baker. And I mean, she, even not just that, but has raved about how much like, I mean, you helped her and worked with her as she was kind of going through this concept and this idea. Because I was like, I mean, I mentioned in our episode I recorded with her, but like I was one of the first people that she brought her donuts to taste. And I was like, oh, these are great. Where'd you get these? She's like, the China Market on 33rd. And I was like, well, I want more. She's like, well, just kidding. Good news is you can have more. Bad news is they're not from there. So I'm so excited because I think you do have such a great, I mean, collective experience of like the food scene in Utah, and it's fun to follow you. And like, I mean, I'm someone who probably to a fault confines myself to like the Salt Lake area more, but following you and like seeing all the content that you've created around, I mean, things that have been popping up in like Riverton and Draper and like even down in Utah County, and seeing that this kind of growth and quality of food isn't just limited in the Salt Lake Valley, but it's starting to catch on everywhere.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored that, Ying mentioned me and everything. So, I'm excited to be here.
Totally. Because I mean, that's how I got connected to you, as Ying mentioned. I was like, yeah, that'd be a great person to have on, because I always like people with fun perspectives, because if we don't have different perspectives and different ways of seeing things, then why would we have the same people on over and over again? Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to start with, I mean, how you got here. I know that you were born or like raised in Vegas and then made your way northward. I mean, what sparked that change, or what was life like growing up in Vegas?
Yeah. So I grew up in Vegas, but then I moved when I was 18. Okay. I went to the University of Utah for college. So I lived in Salt Lake for like a good 8 years. And then I moved out to New York City for a year. And when I was in New York City, that's when I really started to kind of like start taking photos of food. You know, it wasn't like a thing that I ever really kind of did before, but I always, like to adventure and try new foods and
document it along the way, having fun.
Yeah. And so I lived in New York City for a year, and then I lived in Denver, Colorado.
What took you out to New York originally?
So residency.
Okay.
Yeah. So residency, training programs. And then so I moved to Colorado for a couple of years for my pediatric residency. And it was in Colorado that I started the page. And so that's why it's called Mile High Food Fairy. And
that makes sense.
And then we got the chance to move back to Utah, and I just decided not to change the name. Where we live now so I live in Utah County, but Traverse area, and I mean the elevation there, it's almost mile high.
You can round up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. You round it up a little bit. So
totally.
Yeah. It's
Wait, so if you're doing a pediatric resident, are you a pediatrician?
No, pediatric dentist.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So my parents, well, my mom and my stepdad are both pediatricians, so I was going to be like, oh, what a small world once again. But also, kudos to you. So I'm someone who works in data and numbers, and when I tell people I do, they're like, thank God you do it, because I couldn't. And there's a couple of jobs that I have that same opinion, one of which is like a middle school vice principal. And then I think like pediatric dentist is on there as well. Because I struggle with like strangers' kids in general. And then trying to pull teeth or clean teeth just sounds like too much work for me, but I'm glad that you enjoy it and there's someone that can. So you go to New York for your residency, come back through Colorado is where you start to get inspired by, was there anything that made you want to, or was it just your own curiosity of seeing all of this food and wanting to document and share? So
actually, so my husband and I, we've always liked to try new restaurants and explore new places. And so in New York City, when I was living in New York, it's just so easy to find, so many, they have a lot of Instagram, foodies out there. And I followed a couple that I really liked. So there was like Feed Your Girlfriend and then like Food Baby. And how we basically chose like where to go for date night and everything was basically, me choosing from all these beautiful pictures that I was seeing, And I would use Yelp too. And so I started to get really active actually in Yelp when I was living in New York City, and I got like Yelp Elite status. Oh, nice. And so then I was taking pictures like just to put on my personal Instagram and also to share on Yelp. But I feel like that was like the best way for us to kind of find new places, and I'd find them on Instagram, and then I would look at their Google reviews and the Yelp reviews, and if it all looked good, then that's the place that I would hit up and check out. And so when I moved to Colorado, I was still mostly primarily taking pictures of dessert and everything and putting them on my personal Instagram. And my co-residents at the time, they were like, well, why don't you make a separate food page instead of putting it just on your personal? Yeah. And then I was like, well, I guess I could, but who would follow that? And so I just didn't really see any point in doing that, because I was like, I'm not cool enough to be a foodie person or anything like that. And so one of my co-residents, she was like, well, think of some names. And I thought of a name and I gave it to her, and she was like, well, I'll just make the account. And then so she made the account, and then it was supposed to be something that we both were supposed to do. She was supposed to make posts too, and and all of that, and not just me. But it just turned out just being me. Yeah. So she was like, yeah, this is just your account. I don't want to do anything with it. And I was like, all right, fine. So I just kept taking pictures, and at that time it expanded, past dessert, and so it became, food pictures, and I just liked the idea of taking pretty pictures and editing and just putting it up and sharing things I love. This is kind of like a food diary. I checked out this place and it was really good, and look at this pretty ice cream, And so I didn't know that it would get bigger from there, at the time, if you'd asked me, years back. So I started in 2018. Cool. But I never envisioned people would want to follow me and, have the same sort of taste. But I think it's great because I've been able to kind of share a lot of places and help people explore local spots.
Yeah, it's funny how that culture has changed around it, where, obviously if we go back to the beginning of how to find a place to eat, you're like, all right, let's pull out the yellow pages and go to food and restaurants and try to find something. Yeah. And usually, probably my experience was we probably ate at the same 3 or 4 places growing up. It was always either Charlie Chow's, and they used to be in Trolley Square. Yeah. We would go to Hires, we would go to Spaghetti Factory, and I think that was pretty much it. That was the extent of our night out. And then you go to this point where it's Google's there. I can Google. Google Maps is something helpful. Yelp and all the other platforms and review platforms that they have are there. But it's funny in talking to my friends, especially some of my younger friends, why would I'm not going to check a website. I'm just going to go through my handful of influencers that I have, or the posts that I've saved from them. And that's kind of the list that I check off, especially as this time of life where there's a new restaurant every other day and it's hard to keep up. But if you have someone who can at least be some sort of filter of this I went here, this is good, this is what I had, enjoy. And so, and it's also funny how I feel people who start similar things like this, and it's just like, oh, it's like a fun way to document, like we'll see, like instead of being like, now what's my side hustle that I'm going to be able to gain this like passive income, do that, like that will fail so much more than the other, because that authenticity is what drives it. And especially like the more that you post, the more that they connect with you and understand your taste, the more that, I mean, they can relate. And it's also funny that you had like the partner in business, like slowly dips away. Because I found that like in my experience and others, it's like you'll start with this group project with this. Like I had this one friend who she wanted to start this business, brought on this friend that she'd worked with in another capacity, and little by little she's like, oh, these weights being carried are two very, very, very different things. Until to the point where she's like, you know what? Instead of just having to do everything you do over again, I'm just going to carry forward. So, and it's almost easier that like, I'm almost the same way. People are like, well, what do you do? Like, what don't you do on the podcast? Like I do everything, because I don't like trust anybody. I'd rather not pay someone to do it. And that way I've control as I go. And so you come here and you start posting in Salt Lake. Do you feel like a lot of the growth was happening while you were in Colorado, or it really was the change to here that made things take off a lot more?
So I moved back to Utah in 2020.
Okay.
And then like at that time I had like 10,000 followers at that point. So I'd already grown like in 2 years in Colorado. And so when I moved back to Utah, I had like a lot. I was like losing tons of followers like all the time. But, you know, as I started to post more Utah content, but I always kept like a net positive somehow. And so they just kind of slowly kind of changed out, you know?
Yeah.
But I didn't really see like a lot of growth until like Reels really took off. Like when Instagram wanted to kind of push and like TikTok, I feel like that's where a lot of the growth happened. Because when we moved back to Utah, we didn't move back to Salt Lake. We just moved to Utah County. And I think it was like around like early 2022. No. It's hard to remember the timeline. And so I made a TikTok end of 2020 time, like beginning of 2021. And it was like end of 2020 that the TikTok started doing really well. And so I was actually growing a lot on TikTok more. And so I had way more followers on TikTok than I did on Instagram. And Instagram was just kind of a thing that I was just putting photos on still.
Yeah,
you know?
like, we'll keep posting here, but here's my focus.
Yeah, like my focus was always still Instagram, but then TikTok just like was blowing up with videos and everything. And so I started making more like video content, you know, because like people, when it comes to like choosing food, it's nice to have that visual aspect, you know, and I think videos give you more dimension and more of like a feel of the atmosphere and, you know, overall restaurant experience. And so I feel like my Instagram was kind of like just like it was there. It was like my main thing, but TikTok was doing really, really well. And then I think like it was like late 2021, early 2022 that Instagram started to kind of push out Reels, and they wanted to really be like TikTok. And then I started like reposting, resharing some of my old TikTok videos on Instagram. Before then, I didn't really like post a lot of my videos. I just kind of kept them separate because I wanted to have, you know, a separate like followers, have something separate.
Like a purpose for Instagram and a purpose for like TikTok.
Yeah, and not just like they're on exactly both. The same. Yeah, but they ended up being exactly the same, you know, with time and everything. As I shared more of my old TikTok videos on Instagram, and then that's where all the growth really happened, and like people were like able to kind of discover my page and everything, and that's when it just like exploded too. Yeah. And so eventually, my TikTok became very stagnant. Like, I feel like I haven't really grown that much in TikTok.
Can you remember when that stagnant part happened? Because I'm curious if you saw something the same time I saw something that I was working on something else.
Right before Instagram was pushing Reels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there was, so long story short, in 2022, I lived in a van for 6 months and was making a lot of content. And like, I was probably averaging like around like 15,000 views. And then all of a sudden, like they changed something and it went from like 15,000 to like 500. And I was just like, it's one of those, you like scratching your head. You're like, what is going, like, this doesn't make sense, but like, there's nothing you can do about it. You play the game.
The algorithm, and sometimes they make the algorithm easier. Sometimes they make it harder. You know, it just kind of depends. But no, I feel like my TikTok blew up like that late 2020 and then early 2021. And then it kept growing like a little bit. And then it completely stopped like all the growth around like late 2020, or early 2022 when Instagram started pushing the videos.
And then you come over to Instagram and then they're like, hey, let's promote all of these fun TikToks you've been making on Reels.
Yeah. And because it was like for the longest time, I had like maybe like 30,000 on Instagram. And then like I was like close to like 100K on TikTok for like the longest time. And then that just kind of froze on TikTok. And then my Instagram was able to catch up with Reels. So
that's so interesting because like it's always funny too, because since I started the podcast, obviously like you have to post a lot, which is probably like my least favorite thing. Because the last thing I want to do is be like, or like when I started this, there's no part of me that's like, I really wish I was on social media more and like posting more. Like that brings me joy. But at the same time, it is fun to, make content, put it out, see what does well, see what doesn't. But it's always interesting to see because like, and maybe to my detriment, like I've posted on everything since the beginning, everything from, YouTube and YouTube Shorts to LinkedIn to Facebook Reels to Instagram Reels, like everything. And it's so funny to see kind of like what sticks and what doesn't. And it's like for me, Instagram and LinkedIn are actually the best too. So like that's where I try to like, at least for now, put that energy in. But I've realized my demographic is as over Facebook as I am. Like no one really interacts there. And so it's like, it's fun how you learn. And like, again, going back to like my professional life, I'm a data analyst. So it's like, I see this, I'm like, just chew on it all and just try to make sense of everything. But was there ever any certain reel that you posted on Instagram that was like, oh, like things are changing, this is starting to become more like quote real, but, or did you just feel like it was just kind of this gradual change that led to kind of where you are now?
I think more so like my first like truly like impactful like video was actually on TikTok.
Okay.
And so I did it for Doki Doki. So that's just a local Japanese dessert shop, and she makes the best crepe cakes ever. I love her passion fruit crepe cake, by the way.
It's so good.
So you've had it. Okay,
yes.
Good. I was gonna say if you haven't had it, you have to have it. It was that video. It was like late, I think it was like December 2020 that I posted that. And I was just still messing around with like video formats and everything. And so back in the day, I was doing like voiceover too. And, but I just posted it just to kind of see like, I was like, oh, well, we'll just see what happens. And then that one actually blew up. And so that was the first time that I was actually kind of able to see like in real time like how impactful social media can be. And so Doki Doki, you should have her on the show eventually. Okay. But she was actually like around COVID time and everything, like they were actually considering closing. And so after this video got posted, she had a line down the block, like down the sidewalk, down the road.
I just imagine like, let's say
after this video.
Yeah, like let's say she doesn't have TikTok or see it. She just shows up to work and is like, what is going on?
Yeah.
What changed overnight?
Yeah. And they like basically like showed up to work and they were like, what?
All of a sudden, everybody knows who I am and wants to have them.
Yeah. And it was able just to give her a lot of exposure and just like really lift her up to where, she was actually able to, reconsider and be like, hey, you know what? I think I can keep the shop open and keep going. And so that made me really happy. But that was like a time when we were like, wow, social media can be huge.
Yeah. Especially when, social media sometimes gets this rap of like, oh, it's meaningless. This doesn't do anything. This is all fake, which don't get me wrong. There's that whole part of that. But at the same time, like to go to a small business owner and flip their story from saying, oh, you're about to go out of business because there's this pandemic that's negatively impacted you. You don't know what to do about it. And then all of a sudden someone can create a content in a way that creates all of this action from so many people to say, oh, wait, actually still in this, everything's going better now. And even still, like if you follow a lot of food accounts, especially like influencer accounts, like they're always like, everybody loves Doki Doki.
Yeah.
And like, I remember the first time.
She works with tons of foodies.
Yeah. And like, she's such, I haven't met her, but hopefully we'll soon. But it's been fun to see. I always love when good places get the attention they deserve. And it always bugs me when like not so good places kind of get to, and they usually have to pay for it to get that attention they deserve. And cause like, I love Doki Doki, especially like, right below one of my favorite, well, not favorite, like restaurants, Stone Ground. But one thing I love about Stone Ground in this like side tangent. So when I lived in Seattle, there was a bakery that would supply all of, the breads and pastries to pretty much every coffee shop in Seattle, which in Seattle, there's a lot. So you get this consistent, like, oh, I recognize these same scones. I recognize these same muffins and like restaurant rolls and everything. And you start to come to notice it. And then I moved back to Utah. And all of a sudden, like, as I'm going to like barbecues, like, oh, these rolls are the same. Or I go to a restaurant, these rolls are the same. This, and I'm like, it's all Stone Ground. They supply so much of them. And so it's this like kind of weirdly specific business that I kind of like love. It's his like bakery distribution. Especially like talking with Ethan from Thirst about how he's scaled his, beignets and pretzel bites. Oh, same. And it's always nice because there's one on the way home from two of the places I go to most. So I'm like, well, I guess I could use a little something. Mm-hmm.
But it was that difference, like, because I feel like static post is a static post, it doesn't really have that viral potential, whereas videos have that viral potential. And it was really huge to kind of like realize that. And then that's what kind of really pushed me to keep making videos. And so it's like, you'll have like some that hit and then some that don't hit, but it's just what people are interested in.
And it's always interesting because like sometimes I'll post something like, this is going to take off. Everyone's going to love this. And I'm like,
and it doesn't.
And then I'll be like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, all right, I guess that's the way the world works. I can't control this, but kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I feel like with videos, like you have to either be like super informative or entertaining or have like a little bit of controversy because you want something that's going to automatically make people want to send it to their friends.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm learning the ways. I've learned a lot, but I know that there's still a lot to learn, which is, I like that process. I'm not that person that just wants to like figure everything out, but I want to like actually learn and understand it. So it is definitely an interesting world, but I've enjoyed it. So you move to Salt Lake, you start posting content, TikTok comes around, does well, Reels comes around, starts to do really well as well. And I'm sure that that's when probably a lot of demand from a lot of small business owners are saying, hey, would love to have you come do a review, try and figure all that out. How did you find this balance between like, quote, your day job and this side project that started to take more demand from you?
I've always considered it kind of like a hobby, and I still do consider it as a hobby because I don't want to keep doing it if it's no longer fun for me. And so I only want to do it for as long as it's enjoyable to me. And so that's like the hard part too. Is for a while I did get a little bit burnt out too. And I think that's just like the nature of it because you start getting like all these people that are reaching out to you and, it's because they see your content and they're hoping that you can do something similar for their business. And for a while it was like hard to say no, and so I got burnt out in that way. And at the same time though, I've always, because I see that as a hobby and I want to just share like things that I actually like or things that like, my husband likes or something that I feel like still has good potential. I do turn down places that I just feel like it's not something that I'm going to love enough to share, or places that I just feel like, hey, they don't really need that much help and I'm not super into that type of food maybe. But I feel like it is hard, and so I just basically want to share places that like I enjoy, because it's kind of like, well, what do I have this page, and so it's like, is it for my followers? Is it for the businesses? Is it for me, personally? And it's kind of like a combination of all of those. And so you want to be true to your followers. You want to share places that you think are going to get, that they have like potential and that, they just need more exposure and that a lot of people will enjoy it. And so it's interesting, I get a lot of messages all the time and, but for the most part, like when I go out to check out places, I usually go with my friends, and we kind of make it fun. And,
might as well.
But it's a lot of work actually. It really is, especially when it comes to video now, because before it was just pictures and I would just like snap pictures on my phone and it was like no big deal. And now it's, I have like a Canon camera, like an actual camera that I use, especially for like collaborations and everything. And it's like photos and it's video content. And then at home, there's editing on Lightroom and then there's editing on like UCut or InShot for the video editing. And it's a lot.
Oh, totally.
It really is a lot. So it's interesting because like when Reels like really exploded, like a lot of foodies saw a lot of growth too. And it is like, there's definitely like a big business component to it as well. Like I've never considered like Mile High Food Fairy like a business, as much as some other foodies have. But I think it's important to just like acknowledge that too from the business standpoint, that it's a lot of work that goes into it. Yeah. And so it's it also kind of depends on like how close the place is to me, so
I'm not driving an hour.
Exactly. I'm not driving an hour just for like this ice cream, and you don't and some places will have a budget, which is great, and some places don't, and that's okay. It kind of depends on if it's something that I really want to try and check out.
Yeah.
So,
and it's like, and I like the way that you put that too, is I would never put something that like I don't truly like or something that I'm not interested in, because at the end of the day, like I don't want to say necessarily like a responsibility to your followers, but there is like some credibility that you have to maintain. Because if you, let's say someone says, I'll pay you $50,000 to post this.
Yeah, and I've turned down paid collaborations because it's a brand that I don't like. You know?
Right.
And so usually those are like fast food ones that come to me too. And I'm like,
listen, Sonic.
Yeah, I'm not posting on McDonald's. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because, like, again, going back to that example of like the motivation for doing it, if it's authentic and you do want to actually truly promote good food that you can give your stamp of approval for compared to the financial component, and if you were the financial component, you probably would have jumped at the, like, quote, McDonald's, unquote.
Yeah.
But
like
then,
if I really wanted to make this like a side hustle, you know, and I mean, there's a lot of foodies that do it successfully, and that's awesome.
And they can do, like, that's to them.
It's just not for me.
Yeah, and like to maintain that credibility is so, like, because there's accounts that, I mean, I don't know why I come, like, when I think of accounts that I've done this for, like, the only ones that come to mind are like meme accounts, but they'll like post a promotion. I'm like, unfollow, like, this is very frictional from why I followed you. Like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think maintaining that is super important. I mean, for you personally, I mean, what are some of the restaurants or like cuisines or things that get you the most excited? I mean, personally, outside of Mile High Food Fair.
Oh, I love dessert. Desserts.
I had a feeling.
Yeah, I do share a lot of desserts. I do also share a lot of Mexican as well. I love Thai and Indian, Japanese, Vietnamese.
Is there any cuisine that, if regardless of who they are, if they reached out to you, you're like, that's not my thing, try someone else?
It depends. And so my husband, he's the one that likes a lot more American food than I do. Like he's more likely to want a pizza or a burger or a steak. And so places like that, I tend to be a little bit more like, but it kind of depends. Like so my husband actually has celiac sprue. Okay. And so I do try to share places that have good gluten-free options, like when I can. And so if like a pizza or a burger place comes to me, but they actually have, you know, a good gluten-free menu and everything, then that's something that I'll still share. But you won't see me posting like a pizza place that doesn't have gluten-free options, unfortunately, because that's just not, that's like a category of food that I'm not really huge on. Which
makes, like, I mean, personally, strongly disagree. Pizza is my comfort food.
You probably, that's fine, but it's like pizzas, it's sandwiches that aren't as exciting for me personally.
But also, like, on the gluten-free part, like the amount of, I mean, gluten-free and vegan options in general has exploded.
Yes, exactly.
Because I had a vegan friend kind of like late 2000s, early 2010s, and then he moved to Denver actually. But it was always interesting because I never really had like a point of view into that until I'd like hang out with him and be like, I was like, oh, we need to go eat lunch. I'm like, oh, let's go here. He's like, I can't go there. I'm like, what do you mean you can't? He's like, because I'm like vegan, I can't eat there. I'm like, and it's funny, the place he would always go because I had some of the best vegan options is actually Taco Bell. So we had a lot of, which I wasn't mad about, but yeah, I mean, it's like there's so much more of an appetite for the gluten-free, vegan, plant-based, and to have a pizza place that says, yeah, like we do have an option. We have a cauliflower crust. We have a gluten-free crust.
Yeah.
I think is a lot more of what people would be looking for in that category than here's pizza, you know? Because I feel like if you do want like good pizza, in most places, it's pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, I don't know, or maybe I'm completely wrong.
It's not like there's like a lot of like hidden gems.
Yeah. Like, I mean, everybody knows the pie. Everybody knows Pie Hole. Everybody knows, Big Daddy's for different reasons. But then it's like, I mean, like my favorites are always like Pizza No No. I live right around the corner from Nomad East, which, I mean, if they have any sort of like spicy sweet pizza, I'm in. But I've also loved the diversity of cuisine that's been coming in because, I mean, historically, it's like one thing that I always scratch my head at is, I mean, Salt Lake itself has a very rich Asian American culture. Yes. All the way back to when, I mean, the railroad was being built, the negative side of the culture of like post World War II outcomes. And it's funny because like living in Seattle, I mean, amazing Asian food. I mean, you have Chinatown, you have like, I mean, multiple din tais within like 20 minutes. And then you come to Utah that does still have this amazing and rich Asian culture, but I don't feel like the Asian food scene really matched that. Especially like something as simple as like, I want to go get dim sum. I can't think of a place off the top of my head to get dim sum.
Yeah. I mean, New Golden Dragon, but no, that's a great example. So I'm actually half Chinese too. And so like living in New York City, you know, there's so many options. Living in Vegas, there were so many options. Denver had great Asian food scene too over in Aurora area. But it's getting better. It's getting a lot better. Like especially back from when like I first moved to Utah in 2009 compared to now. Like,
oh my goodness.
It's huge change. Like even boba shops exploded.
Don't get me started about boba.
Late about boba, you know, Utah's always about like 5 to 10 years late on these sort of things. But when I was in college, like we would want to go get boba drinks, and we'd have to go down to West Valley. We would go to like Fug Cali Gossip, and that was like where you get your boba. That's it. And now they're just everywhere, which has boomed. And that's great.
I know. When I lived in Seattle, so I didn't even have a car for most of it and would walk to work because I live pretty close. It was one of my favorite times for that reason. But there were 3 boba places on the way home from work. And so most Fridays, I mean, I was working a lot back then. And so I'd be walking home and walk past the first boba place, be like, no, we're going to be strong. We're just going to go home. Mm-hmm. And then the second one would be like, all right, like, oh, I guess they do have like a blended mango and pina colada. Maybe they could mix them together. That'd be kind of nice. Still walking. And then I'd get home, and by then I'd have a boba in my hand from the third place because I couldn't say no. And then thankfully when I moved back to Utah, that's when it was starting to blow up. And now I go, I mean, it's either Kung Fu on 4th or have you been to, Space Tea on State? And I went there because like, again, I just wanted boba and it was close. But so my favorite animal and spirit animal, and I have a tattoo of it, is like a river otter. And so I walk in and their whole logo is an otter. And I was like, I'm done. Like, sign it up. This is my place. Found it. Like, so again, and it's fun to see how many of these places are growing, especially I feel like the average Utah consumer is starting to change their behavior where, I mean, you look historically, it's like, okay, these Zupas, these get in, get out, fairly cheap, but like decent quality were really like the lay of the land. And like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I still go to them frequently. I mean, I went to Costa Vida on Monday for lunch, which probably, I mean, blew up during that time. Yeah. But now as more people move to Utah, a lot of these younger generations are growing up in this time where people care more about experiences, and food being one of those. I feel like we're finally starting to find this time where the quality is starting to step in as people are willing to pay more. And I mean, would you feel like you've seen similar trends, or you feel like Utahns are still this anomaly of their own specific preferences?
It's definitely getting a lot better, for sure. Yeah. And I feel like Utah County kind of struggles more with like having a lot more like franchises coming in and chains coming in still. But there are a lot of great new mom and pop shops too. And I think that's also kind of like a Utah thing too, where I feel like, I mean, I didn't really grow up here, but I know like friends that grew up here, like their families, you know, they go to like Texas Roadhouse and they go to Cheesecake Factory. And it's because these places are really, you know, convenient for large families, and they provide affordable quality food, you know, and so it's easy for, you know, families for like their Friday or Saturday or Sunday, you know, family dinner to be like, hey, let's just go to Cheesecake Factory. There's something for everybody.
Yes.
But I think it's also maybe like a generational thing too.
For sure.
Kind of, you know? And then as more people move into Utah, you know, the restaurant scene, you know, all of that becomes a lot more diverse. And I think people just are sick of franchises and chains, and that, you know, they are starting to want more mom and pop shops and more diversity.
Totally. Like
I'm still waiting for soup dumplings to become like a big thing here.
Oh, give me some chow lung bao right now, and I will down them. Yeah. Like I actually have a friend that I think she used to do it daily. I don't know if it is anymore, but she would message Din Tai Fung every day, being like, "Hey, Salt Lake City, Utah." Which, like, to be fair, if I was them, I'd be like, "This doesn't make any sense." But,
I think you have to ask Stuart, but I think he reached out to Din Tai Fung, and they said that they have no plans on coming to Utah.
Which I get.
Utah's not there yet.
But selfishly,
one day,
I have a lot of strong opinions. But no, I think you're absolutely right. Like, there is, I mean, even thinking about, I mean, some of like the quote best restaurants in Salt Lake that tend to come up more. It's like, I mean, your Valters, your Takashi, your Manoli's, your Mateo, your...
Yeah, and they're all locally owned.
And all great places, but like, to your point, like, to try to show up with like a family of 5 or a family of 7, like, hard. No way in hell. Which is fine. Like anybody who has had kids like knows that there is a strong change in behavior once you have a kicking, screaming baby, toddler,
absolutely,
preteen, teen, like... There's just things you can and can't do anymore.
Yeah, so there's always going to be a place for the chains and the franchises, just because it's easier to bring your screaming toddler to the, you know, to one of those fast casual spots. But yeah,
totally. I mean, in your experience, like, I mean, recently, has there been anything that? Because I'm always because like I could ask you your favorite places, and there'd probably be similar things that people would know about. But I'm curious if there's anything that has just aggressively, let's say, exceeded your expectations, where you go, whether you were asked to go or went on your own volition, and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't think this was going to be that great, but this is actually like a hidden gem.
Man, that's a hard question because there's so many spots that I love.
True. Let's get more specific then.
I mean, there's like places that are like my go-tos.
Yeah, what are some of your go-tos?
Yeah, so Bon Thai, that's probably one of my like main go-tos for Thai food.
Okay.
And so they're like at the Traverse Outlet in Lehigh.
Ooh, good.
But they have my most favorite pad Thai.
Really?
So good, yeah.
So because like
they have
so
really good khao soi as well.
Because that's one of my favorite. So how do I want to phrase this? So there's like, if you look at the spectrum of like foods and quality, some cuisines have a broader one. Like I think one of the most broad qualities is Italian. Like you can go literally to spaghetti in a bucket, which I haven't been to, but it always makes me giggle.
I haven't been there either.
And that's probably not going to be, I mean, if you're going to get a bucket of spaghetti for like $10, it's probably not going to be great.
It's a deal.
Yeah. But then you have like an amazing, authentic quality ingredients. Italian is huge. But like for one of my opinions is pad Thai, like Thai food is one of the more narrow. However, if you can find the right place and or pad Thai, it can be off the charts. And so whenever I have someone who I trust and they're like, this is my pad Thai place, I'm like,
yes, that Bon Thai is my pad Thai place.
Okay. So I work down in, I quote, work down in Lehigh, which means I work remote and go down like twice a month, but I will make it a point that Bon Thai, I will go get pad Thai.
Yeah, they're pad Thai. I always get it just with veggies. But...
Just with veggies? Okay. I'll get it. I'll be like, can I get this amber way? They're like, how did you know? Like, know some people. Okay, so pad Thai, Bon Thai.
Yeah,
what else?
We love Little India for Indian. So that's
Cool.
an American fork. They actually ranked like number 19 for Yelp for like the top 100 places to eat in the U.S.
Wow.
So yeah, it's my number one in the Indian spot.
Again,
sure.
if this pushes
so if
me,
you go to American fork,
yes.
Little India.
I mean, if I need to get pushed, I need to get out of my comfort zone and go further south and probably further north.
Yeah.
But I also have a friend of the pod. I mean, he was on, his name John Darley's an artist. And then, I mean, also my friend Howard, who was just on last week, are both down there. And like, so I paint a lot. And so I'm always messaging them now about painting things because they're like, yeah, like text me whatever you need to. I'm like, do you mean it? And so I was actually texting him today. I was like, hey, can I come down and paint with you? Because like, I want to see you in your zone, but B, I don't want to paint alone. And it's nice to have like, I mean, someone I can be like, is this how I would do this? Is this not this? But so then I can always find a new place because like I always go, whenever I have to eat around there, I always end up at Wing Shack. And it's funny because
Wing Shack?
Yeah, 3 people have taken me and it's always like, I know this wing place. You've probably never been there, which worked the first time, but the second time I'm like, no, I'm fine being here. Don't get me wrong, but good place to be.
Have you tried Houston hot chicken?
No, but I saw that they just opened their second location here.
It's amazing. That's my favorite chicken spot.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my number one chicken spot actually.
Because I do love a good chicken spot, but it's hard because like I live kind of like Yellcrest area. And so, I mean, obviously on 9th and 9th, there's the Crack Shack.
And that's going to be a Houston hot chicken soon.
All right. Well, looks like I don't have to go too much further away.
Just have to wait a few months.
Interesting. Okay. So Houston hot chicken. What makes it, like, just out of curiosity, what makes it different than any other chicken place?
So their chicken, it's never frozen, and so like when I eat at a lot of chicken places, I feel sick after, and so this is like the one chicken place like for me where I don't ever feel sick after I eat there, but it's just their quality of chicken too, and so it's just like their tenders are just huge, and juicy, and there's so much white meat and everything, and I like the minimal breading too.
Yes.
I'm not a big fan of like a lot of breading. You know, some places have a lot of breading, and so they keep it pretty minimal. But they have all these different spice levels too, and it's just an overall really great chicken tender.
Yeah,
so,
and
and their fries are really good, and their sauce is really good too. Their crinkle fries. I usually don't like crinkle fries.
Same.
But their crinkle fries are like
to every rule. There's an
they
exception.
blow my mind. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And their sauce is great too.
I think that's probably the perfect answer you could have given.
Overall experience with the sauce and the fries and the chicken. Like some places will have good chicken, but the fries will be like a no-go.
Yeah. Oh, they've all got. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship and you go on a date with another couple. There's always like one person in the couple you end up liking more, and it's not like you both like the other couple the same. So same with like chicken places where you're like, okay, like I like the chicken, don't like the fries, or like, oh, their sauces suck. And it's not like you can go to 3 different chicken places and like
combine them all
into one.
Sometimes you wish you could.
Oh, don't get me started. But yeah, I mean, like, and that's like one thing I talked with Mateo about is like with a lot of, I mean, it probably applies more to fine dining than like generic, I mean, food in general, but there's kind of like 2 avenues you can go. You can go the quality route and just perfect your ingredients, perfect your recipe, and keep it as minimal as possible. Like stay true to the tradition. But then there's the other side of things where you're being experimental, you're trying new things, and like really creating a different experience, which we've seen a ton in like food fusions over the past, I mean, probably like decade now, and really trying to like redefine a lot of these cuisines. But for me, especially with chicken fingers, like give me quality chicken. And like, again, like you don't overbread me. And I'm a sauce guy. So if you don't have sauce, then I'm already out. I'm still minorly dubious on the crinkle fries, but I can get there.
You'll have to check out their crinkle fries.
But I've also like been paying a ton of attention of like how food makes me feel. And it reminds me of, and I'll have to fact check me on this, but there's like a study they did on burger places, especially burger chains within the last 5 years, testing like the quality of the beef. And every single one of them got like a D rating except for Shake Shack. And then I realized, I was like, oh, if I go to Shake Shack, like my stomach doesn't, like I don't feel gross after. And so I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So like a place that doesn't make me feel bad after, heaven forbid we have more of those places. Yeah. Okay, so Houston Hot Chicken's your chicken place. What else? What are some of your go-tos?
I have so many great dessert go-tos.
Let's go with it, because we are in the dessert capital of the world.
Yeah, so Doki Doki, but we already kind of touched upon
passion fruit cake.
Passion fruit anything. Passion fruit anything there.
I'm not way with mango. And if there's anything mango on the menu, I'll always get it.
Yeah, so she actually has a sister shop too, Kumo Cafe, and she's got it's a mango sticky rice crepe. It's amazing.
Mango sticky rice is one of my favorite desserts.
It's like, I think it's called the Blossom Crepe. I might be wrong, but it's
Kumo
mango
Cafe.
sticky rice on it, and it's really good. And she actually does her fluffy pancakes there now too.
Okay, I've been wanting to try those.
Yeah. So Chubby Baker,
of course.
passion fruit cream donut, strawberries and cream donut are so good. And I actually really love her blueberry lavender ring donut too, and her lavender milk tea. But you get it hot, and that's the best.
There we go.
Pie Fight, they have a blueberry hand pie. That's my favorite. Again, lived near 9th and 9th and have driven past. I'm not the biggest pie person. You can make it to Pie Fight.
But Pie Fight, I can get over there.
And their crust is amazing.
That's usually the breaker
the
for
big
me.
Thing. Yeah.
Because most filling is semi-similar, but like a good crust is hard to come by.
Yeah, so any of like her fresh fruit pies are really great. Momo's gourmet cheesecakes. So she does really good cheesecake.
Cheesecake runs deep in my family.
And she has weekly flavors, and sometimes she'll do like a passion fruit. That's really great. So passion fruit, and there's like a theme, right?
Yeah, so if there's passion fruit, you were there.
Raspberry lime, that one's a really great one too. Ruby Snap cookies. I love Ruby Snap.
Oh, so I love their... Tammy. I used to always get their, at Harmon's, they're like frozen ones.
Yeah.
And I would make them at home because like I'm not the person who's like, I need a cookie, like let's go drive. Like I'd either make it or pick it up pre-made.
But there's so many great flavors that you can't get at the store.
It's true. I remember the first time they got me in the frozen section at Harmon's downtown. And then after I was like driving by, I was like, what else we got here? And like, I was like, wait a minute, this is way better. There's way more flavors. And it's just like a cool shop in general.
In February, she has like the best monthly flavors. So she has like a rose water cookie and that's amazing. And there's one that's like a grapefruit, the Lizzie, and a strawberry lemonade. So February is the time to go. My favorites are the blueberry lemon chia and the horchata cookie. So.
I did have the horchata, and that one was really good. Yeah. So are you safe to say that Ruby Snap Cookies is your favorite cookie place?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Number one. I will always be loyal to Ruby Snap.
Okay, cool. It can be a point of contention.
When it comes to like the big cookies, I do like the Rockstar at Crave, but overall Ruby Snap is like my number one for sure. Yeah. It's just my favorite. Just her flavors are just really robust. It's the perfect size. It's not too overly sugary.
So rich,
it's not
and
too big either. And she just has fun, unique flavors that you can't find elsewhere.
Totally. Like I think that's such an important thing to have because like, I mean, I went through, it's probably my ADHD getting like hyperfixated on something, but there's like a 4-week period where I probably had like cookies, like typical Utah cookies, like twice a week. Yeah. And then again, talking about food that doesn't make you feel good. I was like, this is way too much frosting, way too much butter, like just so decadent, which is fun. Like it's a good cookie, just to your point, like something to have like semi-regularly, like at the end of a day. Like I could not eat one of those I mean, I would be diabetic by the end of the year, but I do love, Ruby Snap. They do a really good job, especially like kind of like manageable size. Interesting. I know it says you said your favorite sushi place is Sapa.
Yes, I also like Chop Fuku too.
Chop Fuku, where's that?
So Chop Fuku, it's in Taylorsville.
Oh, okay.
But I like getting the more like sashimi style cold plates there.
Good.
Where they have like the sashimi and the special sauces and like little veggies on the side.
I feel like you're a sauce person as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so that's probably my number 2. And actually, Kiyaki sushi is really good for when it comes to like vegan rolls. And so she does like my favorite sushi nachos there. But she has vegan sushi that's actually like filled with ingredients. And it's not like super basic because a lot of places will do like vegan options and you get it and you're kind of like,
you're like, cool, I have cucumber wrapped in rice.
Exactly. I have cucumber and rice. And so at Kiyaki, like hers are like the presentation's like on point. It's like they're legit.
Yeah, I remember I went to, so on the topic of
you don't feel like you're getting gypped.
Yeah.
For like being,
you charge me the same price for your
Yeah. And she's got like vegan spicy mayo, and she's got vegan spicy tuna even. So
all the good things.
Yep,
because I remember one of my best friend and roommate, Tanner too, who I talk on the podcast a lot. He used to live in New York. And every time I go visit him, there was this sushi place around the corner from him that they had these like sweet potato vegan rolls. And he's like, dude, you got to get at least one. Cause it's like one of those like bento box, small rolls. I was like just super dubious. And I was like, this is the only roll I'm ever ordering from here ever again. And even more so like when I lived in Seattle. So Seattle has like a lot of the typical ice cream chains. I mean, like you have your Salt and Straw, you have your, what's the one that's local to there? I can see it. I can literally see every single location they have. But what I didn't know is they actually have this other chain called Frankie and Joe's that I got introduced to for my job at the time, but it's a completely vegan ice cream place. And again, going back to like dubious nature of vegan things and especially ice cream, because I mean, my family, we joke that my grandma's side of the family, they're from Roosevelt and Vernal area, but we have something in our family we joke is like the Taylor gene, which is a complete and utter obsession with ice cream. And my grandma had it, like we went on this trip to the Outer Banks and every day she would show up with a thing of duck donuts, dozen, and another thing of ice cream. The first day we're like, thanks grandma, that's so nice. And the second day we're like, there's still some left. Yeah. But like she would every night finish her day eating ice cream. And so again, I hear of this like vegan ice cream place. I'm like, yeah, like I have strong opinions and I don't think this is it. But then we were walking by Salt and Straw, the line was astronomical. And like the line at Frankie and Joe's was almost as long. And I was like, all right, like let's give it a shot. And I remember like walking, I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to go to another place except for this ever again. And so I like always have to remind like friends, like sometimes I'll be like, oh, let's go try this like vegan thing. They're like, but what about meat? Or like, what about this? I'm like, listen.
Well, this is actually really good for vegan.
Yeah, like try something new. How dare you change an opinion on something? Yeah,
we have like a lot of great new vegan places, and I feel like in Salt Lake in general too.
I feel like we do have like, I mean, we'll always have like a pretty strong, I don't want to say fringe, what's the term I always use, or a counterculture. Yes. And that counterculture tends to gravitate more toward, I mean, plant-based vegan options. And I mean, there's been like Monkey Wrench is the one that always comes to mind for me. Yeah, it's interesting to see that. And like, not only are there like vegan specific places, but everything has a vegan option now or a gluten-free option now. Yeah. So what else? Anything else that comes to mind as the go-tos for you? But I also realize you can only go to so many places.
I can keep going. Okay. So pick a category.
Ooh, let's go with.
We did ice cream.
We did ice cream.
Well, I didn't say my favorite ice cream.
Oh, you did?
I didn't say my favorite ice cream.
I'm curious what it is because like.
Oh, okay. So I have a couple actually. So Blacksmith.
I was gonna say that is my favorite Salt Lake ice cream place.
So good.
Especially their s'more flavor.
That's my number one. Like their backcountry cheesecake. Oh yeah.
I'm seeing some themes here.
Yeah, and they have like a lavender one that's really good too.
Yeah,
like the honeycomb lavender. And I actually really like spilled milk when it comes to soft serve. Spilled milk.
Yeah, I've gone there at least 3 or 4 times. Again, I'm pretty close, and I always love milk.
Yeah.
And so when I saw it, I was like, oh, I'll take an imitation as long as it's good and it passes the test.
Rockwell has the best honeycomb overall. So yeah,
I've not been there yet.
Rockwell ice cream. They have one in the airport now too.
Even better.
Yeah, as you're flying out, go get some ice cream. Oh. Forget food, just get ice cream. Yeah.
It's usually a choice I'm willing to make.
Yep. And Matcha Cafe Kyoto actually has this really amazing matcha soft serve and ube soft serve that I really love. So
I'm like so hit and miss with matcha. Because like I have multiple friends now I've come to find out that love like matcha or green tea Kit Kats.
Okay.
And then I was like, okay, I'll try it. And I was like, no, thank you. But I do love like a matcha latte. So it's like, it's kind of like does this make sense? No. But does it make sense? Yes.
Well, try their soft serve and get the swirl so you can get the matcha and the ube.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Deal. I can do that.
Yeah.
I do love soft serve. Yeah. Don't get me started.
It's amazing. Let's see.
I'm trying to think of other broad categories. What about Chinese food and French? Ooh.
Oh, I was saying
brunch. Yes.
Urban Hill.
Urban Hill
definitely is my favorite top spot for brunch.
Okay. I tried
so many things and I feel like I like loved most of them, which is rare at the brunch place. Yes. Like all places I'll be like, oh yeah, I really like this one dish.
And it's hard with brunch because like there's so much overlap in the menu and it's hard to be like, this is actually something very unique.
Yeah.
Like how much can you do to chilaquiles? How much can you do to French toast or pancakes or, other stuff? But if you can make it good in quality, then and like in Urban Hill, I keep hearing more about.
Awesome.
Yeah, Urban Hill for brunch. Got that. Trying to think of more categories. Mexican.
La Casa del Tamal. So my husband really loves the queso tacos there.
Okay.
And then their quesadillas, they're just giant.
Yeah, it's because I think I've had their like their birria tacos.
Yeah.
Because they're on North Temple, right? Is that the one I'm talking about? Or am I thinking of someone
La Casa
else?
del Tamal is in West Valley.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think of someone else, but I do always, because like it's always hard because like I think one of the biggest oxymorons in Mexican food is like gourmet Mexican food.
Yeah.
Because like to me, like Mexican food is meant to be like every time I go to Mexico and I like pull up and it's like
fancy.
Like right, you pull up at this random place, they have plastic tables and like and you just talk to the woman, she's had this place for 20 years, her husband, like, and it's like that's kind of the feeling. So to be like, here's your white glove service, like it feels a little like juxtaposition. But don't get me wrong, like one of my favorite places I've ever been to is Mexico City, and like some of the most amazing restaurants, obviously a lot of them are Mexican, so I don't want to say like you can't have high quality Mexican food unless it's coming out of a taco truck, but
we love the Al Pastor at El Morelense. Like they have their original locations in the Latino Mall, but they have a location in South Jordan now.
Okay.
So
because I'm a bit like Al Pastor is one of my favorite things because I'm a huge pineapple person. Actually, I would just
I get the lambre, which comes with the pineapple and the cheese, and that's amazing. But that's like my go-to there.
And actually, it's funny. I just had a pineapple in my car for a week. So we got back from a trip in Hawaii, and my mom like gave we had this. She's like, "Here's a pineapple for." We got back from Hawaii, and it literally just sat on my passenger seat for like a week. And someone got in my car like, "Why the hell do you have a pineapple?" I'm like, "I don't know," but it's also kind of like part of me at this point. So we'll just go with it. Okay.
My husband's favorites are all totally different than mine, though.
Well, it's good to compliment each other, or it can cause the most friction in the world.
Well, it depends, But he loves El Morelense too, and the Bontai and Little India. But yeah,
I do want to try a Little India because I've always been I guess it's Mumbai House now. That's always been my go-to. Mumbai. But I can change some opinions.
Yeah. Did you make it down to American Fork?
I can do that. I'll go see John and Howard, and actually there's someone else on there who's a sculptor that I want to have on soon. Yeah. Because I went down to visit John, and he's like, "Hey, I want to introduce you to my sculpting friend to potentially be on the podcast." He's like, "And by the way, sculpting studios are way cooler than painting studios." And I was like, I don't know what you mean by that, but I'm along for the ride. Because like with painting, it's like, okay, cool. There's probably a couple sketches on the wall, something that they're working on. And a lot, just not much else to it. But the thing with sculpting, and the way they usually prefer to do it is they will keep all of the originals and they'll cast whatever they're doing and work for the person. And so I walk in and he has statues everywhere from sizes of like 3 feet all the way up to like 9 feet. He's one of 2 sculptors that do the busts for the NFL Hall of Fame. So all of those are lined up on a shelf. And so like I walk in and my like jaw drops and I was like, I get what you mean. He's like, yeah, this is a sculpting studio. Oh, I have a good question for you. So if you're feeling like you need a soda, what is your preferred
thirst?
Okay. You pass the test.
Hands down thirst.
Yes.
Pretzel bites are the best there.
Yeah.
And the maple beignets.
I always have to make sure I know when the maple beignets are because I'll usually go past the 13 South one at least once a week.
I especially love their jalapeno. The special, sometimes they have the weekend special, the jalapeno pretzel bites. Those are my top favorite.
Yeah.
But I've been bugging them to open in Utah County. I'm like, come down to Utah County.
Ethan.
So I think it's in the works. They just have to find the spot. That's always the problem. Is the location.
Oh, totally. But, like even Ying getting into Orem, like it was such a battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, Utah County. It's like it's funny because they obviously Utah in general, a bunch of sugar addicts. That's our drug of choice.
Yes.
But then that is the capital of it. So to think of not having one.
Cookies.
That and cookies. If you can get them both at the same spot with kids in the back of the minivan, then everybody wins.
Yep.
All right, let's see. What else? What other cuisine haven't we done? Italian.
Italian.
I guess that's carby though, so you probably don't do that a lot.
So that's the thing I was going to say is I don't go out to a lot of Italian places because my husband is celiac and everything, but we've been to a few Italian places recently, and I'm actually going to an Italian place later today, actually, too.
For work or pleasure?
No, just...
Or both, I guess.
It's with a friend. And
one of the same.
Actually, Doki Doki.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm going with her. But Italian's a tricky one because I've never historically been a really big... Italian food person either.
Especially if I'm going out, it's usually not my favorite cuisine.
Yeah, but we really enjoyed Matteo.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say Sicilia Mia as well.
That's usually the top spot.
Sicilia Mia too.
Yeah, I do like
those two. And I do really like the lemon gelato at Valter's that they do tableside.
Yeah, I know. I do love. I struggle with Valter's now because, simply because he's not there anymore.
The ownership change,
and so it's hard to be like, this is the same thing with the same person. Like, there's not this semi crazy Italian man talking to me through half my meal, and I love it. Yeah. Well, I love that he's there, not love that he's not there. So I do struggle with that one. I do love Cafe Melisse, like BTG every now and then.
I haven't been to Cafe Melisse for a long time, so I went back when I was lived in Salt Lake, but that was years ago.
Yeah, I've liked that they have, so that building itself, and so those who don't know, Cafe Melisse, it's on the corner of, what is it? Is it, no, it's not Second West, it's Third, there's a West Temple and Fifth South? Fourth South? Anyway, around there. Yeah. You can edit it later. But so that building itself, I used to always drive by as a kid, and I was always so curious about it. Because if it's this random kind of tall, old structure, because I love architecture, so I'd be looking at be it's so interesting, but what's in there? Because it was always a nightclub, or then it was shut down, and then it was I think just a bar in general, and then it opened up as a restaurant, and I was like, I can finally go. And I remember the first time I went, I talked to the waiter, I was like, hey, can I walk around? They're like, oh yeah, go up to the top, it's really interesting. It's event space, and then obviously you go down to the basement, and that's BTG. And I was like, it was just this almost childhood appetite that finally got fulfilled. Yeah,
I would say even though I'm not a big Italian food person, I do think Matteo's definitely the next up and coming huge must try Italian spot for sure.
Yes,
and apparently he has gluten-free pasta now too, and so I have to go back.
Yes, there we go.
I have to go back. My husband liked what he got last time, but it wasn't the pasa. But he's excited to try it.
Yeah, Matteo. Yeah. Matteo in general, great person, great restaurant.
Oh yeah.
I remember I went there about a month ago, and I was going for a date with a girl, and I really like wine, but sometimes you just don't know wine very well, and so I ordered this bottle that I'd kind of learned from good old Wine Wednesday at Edison House, and I was like, it was really good, and then he's like, oh. He's like, you got this bottle? He's like, that's one of my favorite bottles. I literally had to almost steal this from somewhere and had to carry it by hand to get it here. I was like, okay, thank God. At least he didn't come over and be like, this is the worst wine you could have ordered for this area. Because he's a sommelier as well. Yeah. So always has good opinions. And he also is starting to have his wine dinners on Tuesdays now.
Oh, he's going to need a bigger restaurant. He's going to need a bigger space for sure.
He's got plans. Don't you worry. That's great. There's a lot of stuff that he's working on. That's why when I was publishing his episode, I was like, do we say Chef Matteo? And then I was like, no, this guy will be so much more well-known as a restaurateur than just simply being a chef or coming together with a great simple restaurant concept doesn't do enough for him. Curious bakery / pastries.
Oh, yes. Oh, 43 Bakery.
43rd Bakery, okay. 43 Bakery.
Yes, 43 Bakery. So they actually have a really good cronut. And a vanilla pull-apart.
Ooh.
And they do this monthly croissant too. So every month it's a different flavor. It's supposed to be a love letter to a different Salt Lake neighborhood. And so September they had a really great one that I really loved. It was a plum, but it's a filled croissant, and they do a different one each month. So it just kind of depends on the month.
All right.
But they have really good brioche bread for their sandwiches. So perfect. Breakfast sandwiches, lunch sandwiches. You need to go there.
I need to have you as an app.
That's a really good one.
Almost like a Chat GPT, but Mile High Food Fairy GPT, where I'm like,
yeah,
what is the best? And you're like, this is where you need it, because I had no idea. But at the same time, how cool to have specific neighborhood themed menu items.
Yes, yeah.
Because I'm a big fan, so I live close to Thule, and that's my favorite. I call it my small place, because I go there and then I run into 5 people that I want to see, and then we chat.
Yeah.
There's actually one friend of mine, his name's Jeff, that for some reason, every time I go get coffee or brunch anywhere, for some reason he's there. And so even on, what day was that? Sunday, I was working out here, and I was going to go to Thule to get pastry and coffee, and he texted me. He's like, I'm about to go to Thule. I assume you're either there or going to be there. I was like, see you in 10.
I don't know how to pronounce it, but Tuzla I butcher it every time I say it, so I just call it TLJ. But it's a Korean French bakery, so it's from South Korea, but it's kind of French inspired. It is an international franchise, but there's one in Midvale, and that's also a spot that I really like.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The Koreans are onto something, and I love it. I've been a big fan of Korean skincare recently.
Mixsoon.
Yeah. Actually, that's funny you mentioned that.
Mixsoon.
And Korean film and media has been taking off, and so if I need to further adopt that into my carb consumption and pastry passion, then
yes,
I can do that.
Check out TLJ.
TLJ, I can do that. Ooh, let's see, what else haven't we caught up on?
There's Vietnamese.
Ooh, Vietnamese, yeah.
Pho 777.
Okay, Fuss. I think I've been there once. That was really good. Let's see. Probably not a big burger person.
Well, my husband is.
Oh, that's right. It's nice you have this compliment.
But I would say so. But my favorite burger place is Backdoor Burger, and it's in Provo, and they have really great gluten-free buns too. So we do go there like a lot.
Got it.
Not like a lot, but that's like my main. I'd say like if someone asked me about a burger, that's where I would recommend.
Got it.
But they have a peanut butter and jelly burger.
Ooh.
That's really good. So it's like a jalapeno raspberry jam and peanut butter.
I need to get lunch after
So they
this.
just have really unique burgers. So you're not going there for like your standard burger. I mean, you could. My husband's favorite burger there is like a more kind of standard burger with like some guacamole on it. Yep. But they have super unique ones too.
I do like that. Like, because I think the burger.
They change it up.
Because I think the burger place I've been to the most recently is, and I was talking to Corinne from Yelp about it, but like there's always these like kind of like late night places that are popping up. And so like Hot Buns that's run out of the Copper Commons kitchen is phenomenal because it's like amazing ingredients, super simple, late night pickup window, order on your phone. And it's like just right at the, kind of like by Franklin and Rock Taco, just the base. I mean, you know where it is, duh.
Franklin Avenue.
And so that's been kind of mine recently. But like, I feel like everybody you talk to, I was like, oh, Lucky 13. Like, it's like, okay, cool. Like, that's,
like when I was in college, it was like Lucky 13, and back in the day,
I just struggle with burgers I can't put in my mouth.
Exactly.
Like it used to be this thing of like, look how big this burger. It's probably started by Carl Jr. I don't know why, because it doesn't belong in. Anyway. Yeah. But now I'm like, if I can't eat it, it's almost like a couple point deduction because like I want to be able to eat this like a burger. And if you're just going to quality over quantity.
Yes.
Is usually my approach to most things. Let's see. What other cuisines are we missing out on?
Korean.
Yeah.
I'd say Yummy's barbecue in Orem.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen it, but I haven't gone to it.
All you can eat. Mm-hmm.
That was one thing I got.
They do have a location in West Valley, but it's more like fast casual. Like it's just like a drive-through to go, and so I'd recommend going to the Orem. Okay. The all you can eat. Mm-hmm.
No, because like that was one thing I got introduced to in Seattle is like, and I think like there's this ignorance that kind of happens until you start to explore more, where you're like, oh, like I know what Mexican food is, so I think I know what like South American and Central American food is. Like wrong. And you're like, I know what like Chinese or Japanese food is, so that's got to be the same thing as all these other countries. Like, no. Also wrong. But so I remember like getting introduced to, I mean, like bulgogi and like rice cakes.
Yeah, they make everything from scratch. They make all their sides from scratch. They make their kimchi. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a lot more miles on my car in the next month, and I gotta hack away a lot of these. So I mean, looking forward, I mean, as you see kind of Salt Lake where it is and where it's headed, I mean, where do you think? I mean, either trends or certain things that we need, or where you want it to go. What do you see in Salt Lake's food culture?
I just hope it continues to grow, the mom and pop shops, and just like the diversity too, like bringing in new cuisines. Like let's see like a really great Ethiopian restaurant open up. That'd be awesome. And let's see some more soup dumplings. Yes. And just different cuisines that aren't like very abundant right now would be awesome. Like let's see more authentic Chinese, not the Americanized Chinese.
We don't need more
let's
General
get some really
Tso's. We don't need orange chicken.
Let's get some dim sum spots that are really good. And just like seeing more like hand pulled noodle places. Yeah.
I'm with you. Yeah. We need more diversity. We need more fun things. We don't need another.
It's been slowly doing that.
Yeah, so. Credit where credit's due. Like it's changed a ton, especially from. I mean, because like I'm born and raised in Salt Lake, and compared to when I was in high school, compared to when I was in college, compared to when I moved back, it's doing better. And if anybody's
let's see more Filipino food. That's another one too. Filipino.
Cool. I mean, and outside of pediatric dentistry and exploring the food scene, I mean, what else do you like to do in your spare time, or what keeps you in Utah?
Yeah, and so not so. So I have like a 18-month-old now.
Yes, that'll change your life a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. But we used to do a lot of hiking back when we lived in Salt Lake, and so a lot of that, and like playing board games too, like strategy board games, like board games that take like 4 to 6 hours. And we don't do so much of that anymore either, though, with the little one. But
changing priorities, you can always go
change
back.
your priorities. Yeah, and then just getting out and doing different things too.
Cool. I mean, it's so fun too, because like you get such a unique perspective, because like even just plotting the points on a map of everything we've talked about, like that's a good way to explore. Like you'd be all over the place. And so it's fun that like even as your life changes into this new phase of having you're now the one with the screaming toddler, or will be soon.
Yeah, exactly.
That starts to change, but at the same time you still have something that pulls you to have all these experiences. And like you said, it's usually with a friend or some sort of outing that kind of keeps that going, because sometimes it's hard for people in that phase to still keep their life healthy in all the other aspects as well.
And I've been wanting to share more like family, like activity type things too, like kids activities as well. And so I like occasionally, like I think for like the past 6 months, I'll like throw out a video that's not even food related, So
like, we'll test this one. How do we feel about this one?
Yeah. So just getting more into like just Utah things to do as well, not just food.
As long as you're not doing food reviews at Chuck E. Cheese's pizza.
Yeah, no problem. No. No, I mean like more like the butterfly biosphere,
Which people, I don't know.
Or like the Christmas light shows.
Which people always like, because like, there's always something that people don't know about. Yes. And there's also people who like hear of something and they're like, do I really want to go there? Or are we just going to get hand, foot, and mouth disease?
Yeah.
So there is an appetite for that. And I'm sure there always will be.
Yeah.
Well, Amber, I want to wrap up with the 2 questions I always ask every guest at the end of the episode. One you kind of already alluded to, but curious if you have any other thoughts on it. But if you could have someone on the Small Lake City podcast, who would you want to hear their story?
Doki.
I knew it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
she'd be a great one.
Yeah. I've only heard the best, like, because like Ying's always mentioned how great of it, because they've done a lot of stuff together. So yeah, we can do that. And then secondly, if anybody who doesn't follow you already or wants to, I mean, what's the best place to find you on Instagram, TikTok?
Just Instagram. Just follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on TikTok too. I kind of use TikTok like as a little playground to test videos now, but
good little sandbox.
But and so hopefully you'll be able to find a lot of great new spots that you've never heard of before, and hopefully some new favorites. And so that's what's kind of all about, is just sharing what's out there so that, you can discover a new spot.
Totally. Like I wish you could see how many of your posts I've like saved, because I'm like, I did not know this existed. I didn't know this started. And so it's been great for me. That's
what I love. It's like a lot of people are always like, I didn't know this existed, but now I love it and I go there like every week. And,
exactly.
That's what it's all about.
And like that's what we all want. We want to have these fun experiences and not feel like we have to do all this like work to do it, because we're all tired and exhausted at the end of the day anyway. But continuing to explore and see, like, again, experience all of these great changes that's happening in Utah, especially in the food scene, and then also some of this kid friendly and other content as well are I'm sure only going to be,
because a lot of people are always like, Utah just has chains, there's no good food in Utah. Well, there is good food in Utah. You just have to sometimes really look for it.
So thank you for being our culinary Sherpa and helping us know what's good and where to go, Amber. So thank you so much for coming. I'm so excited to knock out the list that we shared today. And make sure to follow her on Instagram and explore some of the great food that's coming to Utah. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Salt Lake City Podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, review, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. And we'll catch you next week. We'll see you there.